I can't believe it. This is it. The final preview for this season for college football. The final game breakdown. National championship breakdown. It's bittersweet, but hey, we still have to do it. You know, we'll do the whole emotional stuff on Monday night. But the last one for the year, not until September, I believe, is when the season week one kicks off. Of course, on week zero, but not gonna be the same though. The somewhat dopamine rush that comes at you during week one. But this is it for a long time. Last game preview. Of course, this is Four Verticals Podcast, episode 157 here on this January 15th, 2025, 2026, excuse me, high atop a chilly Jacksonville, Florida. Beautiful outside here. You can really see out my window. Maybe you can't on YouTube, but it is a beautiful blue sky out, but not so much of the temperature. It's very cold out. Have it on good authority that someone across the southeast, potentially, who knows, maybe not, could see some snow. Even as far south as southeastern Georgia, not far away from here from Jacksonville. It's going to be cold this weekend. It's going to be cold for probably the next couple of days. So just be aware of that if you're living in the southeast. That preview of spring we had back around Christmas, that was full. That was a trick. That was not permanent in any way, shape, or form. Again, we have national championship title prediction, a question, if you will, tied to the national championship, tied to one of the teams. We'll get into that. And we also are starting, or I guess kind of restarting. We started doing this a little bit, I believe, before we went on our little Christmas break. But revisiting spicy predictions. I think we've already done some of this, but we're just going to restart doing it because I don't think there's good documentation of us doing this. So we're doing it again, kind of in a proper way here. So if it sounds like we're repeating some stuff from a couple like a month or two ago, yeah, just our documentation in terms of us, what we were doing a long time ago, it's not been the best. So hopefully this time we can properly document that, yes, we are doing this and we're not repeating ourselves again. So anyway, all that out of the way again, as we say, as per usual, be sure to subscribe to the channel. I know the season's winding down and we're sort of transitioning to, this liminal period before we get into spring football. Trust me, subscribe. This show's not going anywhere after the national championship. We'll still be around, right? Of course, we have our shows on Thursday and Tuesdays. We'll have our semi-weekly Four Verticals extra pod, which it doesn't happen this week on Wednesday. We may do one tomorrow, and I'll release it on the weekend. But we have that. Of course, we talk about college ball all year round. That's the big topic on here, along with other avenues we go into, especially now with the Four Verticals extra pod on Spotify only, not on YouTube. But again, subscribe again. Just because the season's winding down doesn't mean our show's going anywhere. Like, unless I have surgery or something medical, we'll still do the show. Okay, so this show's not going anywhere. I can guarantee you that. And we have a lot to cover too. We have, again, spring football happening here pretty soon. We'll eventually start doing head coaching hiring grades. That'll be happening here pretty shortly after the season concludes. So lots of things to expect here, including stuff that I haven't announced yet publicly. So just putting it out there. But again, subscribe to the channel. Even if you are subscribed, make sure you check. If you're listening to this right now, either on live on YouTube, on Spotify, or on replay, be sure to do that. Follow us on Twitter as well. That should be in the description, I believe, in the About section for the channel on YouTube. And be sure to follow us on Spotify. Again, if you want the Four Verticals extra content, go to Spotify for that. Okay, that's the only place you can find it. It's on YouTube. It's not anywhere like that. So that's the only place you can find it. We'll be over there on Spotify, which can do those somewhat weekly. Again, we'll try to get one out tomorrow. If not, we'll just do one next, I believe next Wednesday, I think. But I don't know. We'll see. Again, just as a reminder, too, probably repeat this again later. We will not have a traditional Tuesday show, okay? Much like last year, we will not have a traditional Tuesday show. We will have a show in place of the Tuesday show on Monday night after the national championship game concludes. So we'll do the breakdown of the game. Now it'll sort of serve as the Tuesday show, and then we'll do a traditional show on Thursday. So a week from today is when the next time you'll see me and this show traditionally like this. And then, of course, we'll have our Four Verticals extra pod as well at some point during the week. But, just the Tuesday show, it's not going to happen. And frankly, it makes more sense to go live after the game's over instead of having to wait, 12 hours or so after. So, again, our show, episode 158 of the Four Verticals podcast, will be on Monday night. Okay, after National Championship, no show on Tuesday. We'll have a traditional show on Thursday. Before we get going here in the actual show, I'm going to get some water real quick and then make sure you guys can hear me. Make sure there's no audio problems with the microphone. So double check here. Okay, microphone's working. That's good. I've had problems before if you're new here where it wasn't working before. So just be aware of that. But yeah, get some water real quick. Then we'll move into the actual prediction part of the show for the national championship. And we'll go on from there. Whew, fan of myself here. National title prediction. Even though it's cold here, here in northeastern Florida, still this is a lot of heat with this game here. Even though it is cold. National title prediction: Miami versus Indiana. I believe it's 8:00 on ESPN. Miami, home stadium. Even though it may not necessarily matter given how Indiana fans have traveled lately, but still, it is a home team hosting a national championship game technically, even though they are considered the away team. But it won't matter because I think Miami fans will show up. I think they will, but Indiana fans will certainly travel. We've seen that already, especially during the Peach Bowl. But national title game on ESPN. Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit calling the game. According to FanDuel, Miami's still minus 8.5 on the betting odds there. Of course, FanDuel's not a sponsor of the show, just an ad set we use for research purposes and predictive purposes. Some people will say per purposes as the actual plural is perpi, but that's for other shows to use. I have a lot of thoughts on this game, clearly. A lot of thoughts. I mean, my page here on my Google Docs is almost, filling up half the page for the show notes here. I think the best way I can sort of start off this preview is that this game, to me, this Indiana-Miami game, sort of the comp here. If you want to go not using like analogs from like past national championship games, talking about this season. So if you're looking at it from, of course, there's the whole common opponent thing. Yes, Miami and Indiana both played Ohio State, both beat them, but that's not necessarily the game that if you're looking for Indiana to lose here, if you're looking for Miami to win the game outright, the path for Miami to win this game, if they're going to do it, is the Penn State Indiana game is the model to follow, is the analog to use here. Now, the Penn State game, and now what's interesting about that game is that Penn State is the only team that matched Indiana physically. One, two, kept the game close. Very few teams did that. Like Oregon did kind of in the first game, and then Iowa, I believe, did. But again, there's three factors here that makes this game unique. So again, number one, Penn State's the only team that matched Indiana physically, kept the game close, and scored more than 21 points in a game. All the other teams in the regular season, and for excluding that Oregon second game, but in the regular season, Indiana or Penn State was the only team to do those three things, I believe. Not to mention, too, Josh Paper style pop. Penn State rushed for 117 yards on 33 carries. They're the only team to do that. Okay, they're the only team in the regular season, I believe, is going to the playoffs and the Big Ten championship game. Only team to do it. Okay, and that is pretty significant too, because Indiana defensively, and you can look at all the categories you have in front of me. If you guys can't see them, don't worry. We'll hopefully before the next season we'll find a way to show you guys this stuff visually. So you can have a visual aid. But I'll just read them off to you. So Indiana has basically all the categorical stuff, these both sides of the ball rankings, like nationally. They have pretty much an advantage in all of them except for one category, which is pass offense, which is their 54th. Miami has 38th. So it's not that big of a gap there. But all the other ones, advantage Indiana, which makes sense. They have been the better team consistently, more efficiently than Miami. Like, for example, total offense, Miami way behind Indiana. Scoring offense, way behind Indiana. Total defense, closer. Miami's 11th. Indiana's top 5. Scoring offense, I believe, is the only one where they're close, actually. They're both in the top 5. Then afterwards, again, passing offense, they're both are above 30. And then rushing offense, big advantage Indiana. Rush defense, both in the top 10. So rush defense and scoring defense are only two categories where Miami and Indiana are both around the same here. I think Miami's lines of scrimmage here, excuse me, Miami's lines of scrimmage here will be the major key in the game. Again, out of all the teams in the playoff, they're not the most talented team. That was Ohio State. But they're the only, with the microphone on here, They're the only team in this bracket here. This is a group of teams that made it into the playoff. The only team that has the best lines of scrimmage. Okay, both on offensive and defensive lines. Best out of all the 12 teams. Again, not the most talented, but they had the best lines. Their lines of scrimmage was best out of all the 12 teams. That's major key here. Okay, because Indiana, outside of like the Ohio State game and maybe the Penn State game, has not faced a physical team like this. Like Bama, kind of. Oregon, yes, but Oregon's talent on lines of scrimmage, particularly I think on, frankly, both, just is not matching Miami. Okay, I think we can clearly say that Miami's lines of scrimmage here should be the key in this game. Now, Miami's key player, there's a lot of them here. You can go with Malachi Tony, the receiver. You can go with Carson Beck. I am going to go with Mark Fletcher. No one's really talking about him. Now, some folks who are like me who follow this sport, pay attention. We've known Mark Fletcher for a while. He's a good running back. He's not, of course, he's not going to win any awards. He hasn't, like, for example, he didn't win the Doak Walker Award this year. But he's pretty efficient. And, again, a lot of this ties back to Miami. I think they're going to win. If they're going to win this game, they need to match what Penn State did. Again, Penn State carried it for 33 times for 117 yards. Miami, they have to either exceed it or match it. That's not negotiable. They have to either match it or exceed it. That total from Penn State, if you're Miami, if you want to win this game. And Mark Fletcher has to be a part of that. They want to, if they're going to win this game, they need to run the football and do it efficiently. So I think Fletcher is a big part of this here. Now, obviously, Carson Beck is a part of it too. The problem with him, though, as a lot of folks have pointed out, again, he's had some big moments here, again, especially in the playoff game against Ole Miss, the semifinal. He had, the big final drive there. That is true. But then you have the games like the Louisville game, you have the SMU game. There's other games too during the year where he has struggled. So I don't know which Carson Beck we're going to get. Are we getting the best version of him, which was in the semifinal, or we're getting the bad version, right? The game, him, the version of him that showed up versus Louisville, or the version of him that showed up versus SMU, or maybe even the version that showed up versus Florida State. So that's what I'm looking for with him. But the key player here for Miami, if they're going this game, is Mark Fletcher. Like, he has to do kind of what Penn State's running backs did against Indiana and do more, right? Again, 33 carries or 117 yards on 33 carries. Miami has to either match that or exceed that to win the game. Not to mention, they'll have to score some points. And I think for this game, if indeed the analog in terms of regular season games for Indiana is the Penn State game, then the amount of points you need to win the score in this game, or you need to win this game, not a points, as I'm starting to think 21 plus to win this game. I don't think 17 is going to cut it. I don't think 14 is going to cut it. Anything below that, I don't think so. Because if that's the case, and Miami's struggling, they can't run the ball, and they're, you go into the fourth quarter and only have 83 yards and 22 carries, then I think Indiana's going to win the game. Because Indiana, their style of ball, especially with them playing this sort of joyless murder ball, physical, ground control, clock control. If that's the case, and Miami has less than 100 yards entering the fourth quarter, Indiana's winning the football game. Because all other parts of it, their facets of the team, like the offense, I have no problem with. Even though their passing offense is in the 50s, everything else categorically is it's very, very good. So that Indiana's offense, I'm not concerned about. It's more or less if they can do what Penn State did, then I actually think Miami can win the game. Because of that and a combination of their lines of scrimmage, they can sort of grind this game out, right? Kind of like the model they were trying to do against Ole Miss. Now it just happened that Ole Miss kind of, in a sense, started to make big plays and whatnot. Not to mention Miami turned the ball over late in the game. So that is a factor here. Another question I have about this game is surrounding Indiana. Again, very few questions about them, but there is one here that I think is interesting here. And it's kind of cliche, but I think it's understandable. Can Indiana, will they crumble against the pressure of playing in a national championship game? We've seen this happen before, okay, especially in the playoff era. It was the TCU-Georgia game, right? TCU, again, sort of like Indiana. Magical run, insane run, getting to the national championship. You got past Michigan in the semifinal. You get to play Georgia, one of the big boys from the bigger conferences, and they got destroyed. Yeah, they earned the right degree there. Okay, they won the games and they got in, I think, fair and square. Even though a lot of folks retroactively will say, "Oh, TCU didn't belong there." Well, they earned the way in. Okay. Well, is Indiana going to be like TCU, where they all of a sudden go, "Oh, we have not faced something like this all year"? That's kind of my worry, just generically. It's just, will they crumble? I don't think they're going to, but that is something that I think a lot of folks have in the back of their minds here. Again, the last time you had a pretty significant brand, not, let me rephrase that, a more physically superior team on lines of scrimmage going against a team that, yes, has very good numbers and they looked really good, but physically they didn't necessarily match lines of scrimmage. That was, again, TCU versus Georgia a couple years ago. Well, yeah, sort of what I'm kind of saying here is, will it turn into that? I don't think so. Again, I don't imagine it that being the case here. At least I don't think. And again, not to mention the sport has changed so much since then in terms of the transfer portal and the spreading out of talent. I don't think so. But in terms of crumbling, right? In terms of Indiana sort of having this and sort of the fact that and again, this is kind of hard to explain here, but again, I just wonder again with Indiana being there, the first time ever, first ever national championship appearance, a chance to make college football history. I just wonder, will they crumble? Do they have the same mentality that they had going into this? Is what I'm thinking. I think they will. I think Kirk Cinetti, being from that Nick Saban mold, that coaching tree, and him sort of applying a lot of the same things, which is not really unique to Nick Saban. It's just he's been able to execute it greatly. I don't think that's really the case here, but it's just something. This is a question I had here. And then lastly, will home field advantage here come into play? Again, like I mentioned earlier, this is technically it's actually officially a home game for Indiana. They're the home team. Miami is the lower seeded team. They'll wear their away uniforms. Technically, it's a home game for Miami. It's in Hard Rock Stadiums where they play out their home games, and so this is, by a sense, a de facto home game for them. Now, I agree with Danny Cannell earlier on Cover 3 during their show earlier. And I was even thinking this before. The last time we had a major sports team, a major football team, both the NFL and college, in the state of Florida, playing in their home field for a title game, was my Tampa Bay Buccaneers during the 2020 season when they faced the Chiefs in that Super Bowl. And we saw what happened there. The final score was 31-9. I'm not saying that's happening here. Okay, I'm not saying that Miami's going to totally dominate Indiana and it just turns into a whole slop fest from the Hoosiers. But I'm just saying that the last time that happened, again, the last time a Florida football team was hosting a somewhat home title game was that Super Bowl. So will that come into play here? Will there be a sort of home field advantage here? Again, I understand Indiana folks travel. Again, Logan the Peach Bowl is definitely a 80-20, 90-10 ratio for Indiana fans and Oregon fans. So, again, I do believe Indiana fans will travel here. I will not doubt that. But I also won't doubt that Miami fans are missing out on their first national title appearance in over 20 years. So that is something to consider as well. Again, the FanDuel line, according to FanDuel, has not changed it. Again, I have the site right in front of me right here on my computer screen. It's still 8.5 Indiana. That's a pretty big number. I do agree, by the way, with Bud Elliott earlier on the Cover 3's Locks Pod, which is them going over the betting side of stuff. I agree with him. That 8.5 kind of inflated because of what Indiana has done in the playoffs, especially their the quarterfinal and the semifinal. So that is kind of more or less reminiscent of what Indiana has done lately, not necessarily reminiscent of the team's talent-wise. Again, if you're to take away what Indiana has done in the playoffs, like against Bama, against Oregon, the spread's probably a lot closer, I think. I think it's definitely below 8.5. It's probably around 4.5, 5.5 probably. Now, the CFB Nerds model, College Football Nerds model, Josh and Daniel, their model, now again, they update it every single week, so this is new information they have. Their model has Indiana minus 1.5. So it's way lower, and I think this is also in line with Josh Pate's model, his in-house model he uses, personal model. So that's interesting. There's some correlation there, both the CFP Nerds model and what he's using. I have a personal story to tell here. Nothing, it kind of relates to this, but kind of a personal thing here with me when picking this game is that this game, to me, in terms of picking it, again, I'm not saying these teams are exactly like these two teams here I'm about to mention, or at least the two participants in the national title game. But in terms of me picking this game, flashes me back all the way to when I was thinking about who was going to win that national title game against LSU and Clemson in 2019-2020. And for that national title game, my story is that this was back when I was in high school. So one of the teachers I had I believe, I don't know what subject he was teaching, but he knows I was a sports fan. He knows I was a Bucks fan. And we were talking about this game, and he was saying, "Hey, Josh, who do you think is going to win the game?" And I said, "Well, I'm picking Clemson because I felt like that, and the teacher picked LSU, so we disagreed. But my rationale for picking LSU at the time, and of course, I didn't have the show back then. This is 5 to 6 years ago. I chose Clemson because I thought that because of LSU's efficiencies on defense, they had some holes. Again, go look at the tape, right? Go look at that Ole Miss game and how many yards John Rice Plumlee ran for. Again, I know a lot of folks will say, "Whoa, that was late in the game. That was garbage." No, it was, and that game got close pretty late, at least somewhat close. But I just felt like, yeah, Clemson, I think physically, especially with their offensive line at the time, I thought they were going to match LSU defensively, and I thought that Trevor Lawrence and those receivers and that offense could do the same type of damage that maybe like an Ole Miss could have done, or maybe sort of mash LSU in a way that like Auburn did that year. And I picked Clemson to win that game, and I was wrong, and I was really wrong on that. And that still haunts me to this day. I still cannot believe I did not pick LSU to win that game. I picked Clemson. I'm not even a Clemson fan. I don't live in South Carolina. I didn't go to Clemson. I wasn't going. I wasn't. I hadn't like applied to Clemson, and I wasn't going to be like a future student at Clemson. No, I went to. I did not go to Clemson University. So yeah, so I got that game wrong. So now, similar situation. We have an ACC team playing against a team from one of the two big conferences. Now, granted, it's not a big name, but it's a team from one of those two conferences. So similar scenario here, kind of. I'm not making that mistake again. I'm not doing it again. No, I'm not going against the team that should be favored to win this game. No, I'm not doing that again. So I am picking Indiana to win this game, but I am picking Miami to cover. I think that 8.5 is a little too big, but I think with Indiana, just this mentality, right? This mentality that Kirk Cincinnati has, this sort of F-off mentality, which very few people do have. Like, for example, like obviously like coaches like Nick Saban had this, Tom Brady as a player had this, even in a sense, currently Baker Mayfield for the Bucks kind of has that mentality, right? I think Indiana and Coach Cincinnati have that mentality. It's this F-off mentality. It's like, we don't care what you think of us. We're here to deal with it. I think they'll win this game, and I think they will make history. I think we will win this history on Monday. But I think Miami does cover the spread. I think this game does profile similar to that Penn State Indiana game. But I do think Indiana wins. I think Miami covers the game. And this will right the wrongs of what I did those 5 or 6 years ago when picking Clemson to beat LSU. And, of course, that was the last time that an ACC team reached the national title. I think. I'm pretty sure that is the last time. So this will be the first time since then that has happened. So I'm not going to bamboozle myself again. I'm not going to pick the ACC team to win the national title. So I am not joining Josh Payne and picking Miami. So go look at Josh doing that. I am not doing that. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid like he is. Of course, I could be wrong on that, but I am not doing that. I'm not making that mistake again. Let me get some water real quick, and we'll move on to this question. We'll have our revisiting spicy predictions segment, then we'll end the show. Very quick show again, but looks like we'll be over 30 minutes, which is more or less common for us. Okay. Question here, just something that was in the mailbag, if you will. I forgot to put who submitted this question, but I was going to have this on one of our Four Verticals extra pods, which, by the way, again, we do those weekly. Actually, before we move on here, I'm going to make sure you guys can still hear me because I know that this microphone I'm using has had some issues lately. It's still on, but let me just check here real quick. Okay, it's still working. Again, it's making sure it is working, because I know there's been times where it's gone out randomly. For those of you who are on YouTube now, if you're on Spotify, just kind of ignore that. But question here, I actually moved this up. Who submitted this question? Let's see here. Okay, there it is. I forgot to put it in. I'm going to do this real quick. Yeah, I forgot to add it over there somehow. How did I do that? Okay, let's start over here. So again, this is a question that I was going to put in the Four Verticals extra pod again, which is weekly. We'll have one coming out, I think, tomorrow. Hopefully, if we have time to do it tomorrow, if I remember. But yeah, this question was originally going to be on there, but I decided against it because it was good enough to it fits our the show here. This kind of national title special preview special question here. I figure it out. From Daniel from Athens, Georgia is asking: is Indiana's run going to have a negative impact on coaches, especially new ones who were recently hired? Interesting question, Daniel. Interesting question. Make sure my microphone here on Spotify for the Spotify listeners. Yeah, I think it's going to. Now, this isn't the first time this has happened. Now, I'm not the only one who has been saying this. Like, for example, like Josh Pitt on his show, he has sort of been kind of beating this drum a little bit of saying, hey, while yes, it's right that Indiana's doing this, yes, it's cool that they are potentially, 4 quarters away on Monday night from making history. This is going to have negative impacts on college football, especially in terms of coaches and how long fans are going to give them, especially new ones, new hires, are going how long fans will give them a chance to build something, right? Because I guarantee a lot of folks, whether you're an Auburn fan, an LSU fan, even Bama fans right now with Kellen DeBoer, Michigan fans of Kyle Whittingham, and Penn State fans with Matt Campbell. Like, there's a lot of fan bases out there right now that either have newish coaches or coaches who have recently been hired are looking at Indiana and saying, Indiana's making it to national championship, and not to mention what they did last year, or in addition to last year with winning 11 games. And they've done it in 2 years while you have done nothing or have done nothing yet, but we want you to be like Indiana. Well, there's 2 things here. Number one, I'm going to echo what Josh Pate said on his show, I think on Tuesday. The Indiana model, at least the way they do it, is not believable. At least the way they're doing it. Now, someone's going to do it probably, but the way they're doing it, it's hard, okay? It's hard to, at least, let me rephrase this. The idea of it is not hard. It's not unique, okay? It's not unique to any certain coach. It's just, the whole, process-oriented, goal-oriented thing. That's not unique to college football. Every coach has done it. But it's very rare for someone to do it in a way that Kirk Chinetti's doing it, right? Like Nick Saban has done it. He's done it well, or he did it well when he was at Bama and before that LSU. Kirby Smart's another one. Ryan Day is sort of in that category. Dabo Swinney in his prime at Clemson was a part of that as well, although his style was a little bit different. So, yes, there have been examples of coaches doing it, but as you can tell, that list is very short. So that's why this whole mentality of like, oh, we can just, do the Indiana model. Well, not everyone's Kirk Chinnetti, not everyone's Nick Saban, not everyone's, Dabo Swinney, and everyone's Ryan Day. So it's very rare for someone to do, or at least it's not the ability for someone to do that, to take that model, which is easy to implement it, but it's hard to actually do. It's hard to execute it. I don't know if there's any coaches in college right now outside of the ones who have national titles, right? Whether it's going to be one of these 2 on Monday night, or whether it's Dabo Swinney, Kirby Smart, Ryan Day. Like it's very few. It's a very select few. Now the other part of it, the negative impact is that again it's going to kind of have both fan bases and athletic departments giving coaches, and especially new coaches, and even some ones who have been there for a couple of years now, unrealistic expectations, right? Like, for example, 2 examples here, both of them in the same state, Auburn and Alabama. Alabama, of course, has had Kalen DeBoer for a couple of years now. Now, their problems are not the same as Auburn's problems, or are their problems the same as like Clemson's problems? But Bama's problem, then, well, how this sort of ties in here is that their fans are looking at Indiana and saying, hey, not only is their coach a former disciple of our former coach, of our coach who just recently retired, and also Cignetti was in the same, I believe he was in the same hiring cycle as you, Kellen DeBoer, and he's done more than you have. And that's true. At the moment, he has done more. Like, granted, of course, a lot of folks will forget that, Kellen DeBoer he went to a national title and actually did something similar at Washington. Like, granted, he didn't win it, as it was at a more established program, but kind of similar though. But again, I understand that. I think it is true. I think a lot of Bama fans are saying, hey, again, this guy, again, he was a disciple of our former coach. One of our former coaches are the greatest coach of all time, and he was recently here. Not to mention, he was in the same hiring cycle, and he's done more than you. Okay, he has done way more than what you have in 2 years. Your first season 9-4, second year you made it to the Rose Bowl, the quarterfinals, and you got destroyed by that set of coach and that set of team. So again, I get it. The pressure to Alabama is a little bit different, but even at places like Auburn, right? People, look at Alex Galesh and go, okay, Alex, we need you to do what Kirk Chinetti's doing. give you 2 to 3 years, and if you can't do that in 3 years, we're going to do what we've done to other coaches recently, like Hugh Freeze, and tell you to leave. And same with Matt Campbell at Penn State. Right, I get you. There's a lot of pressure right now, not hot seat pressure, but just competitive pressure of, hey, go look at what's happening in Bloomington, Indiana. We need you to do that here at Penn State at a place that we have more resources and more access to talent. So again, I get that. A lot of folks, they should feel that way. But at least as me, as someone who looks at it from a more different perspective, it's not necessarily fair though for some of these coaches who are, again, every situation is different, right? Kellen DeBoer, when he came in, his entry point was a lot different than what Alex Gleish's entry point is and what the entry point of Matt Campbell, right? Like Kellen DeBoer got there a couple years ago, and Saban had just retired. The transfer portal back then was such a mess in terms of the way it was scheduled. Players leaving and going. It was a bit of a skeleton roster kind of. It was very chaotic, and they couldn't necessarily do a lot of things they wanted to do. And then of course you had the season happen, very much so. Up and down. You have your highs of highs and lows of lows. Then you get to this year, and then it turns out certain facets of the team weren't really that good. And then you have Alex Gleish at Auburn. Again, entry points are the key here, as Josh Pate always says here. Alex coming in, a lot of guys leaving, a lot of good talent, but questionable maybe in the locker room. They all leave. He's obviously having to kind of do a somewhat of a quasi reboot of the program. It's going to take a little bit to do that. Again, I'm not expecting Auburn to do a lot of good things this year, this coming season. At least at the moment. I just don't think they will, win more than 8 games. At least I don't think they will. Then same with Matt Campbell at Penn State. I grant you, again, similar to with Gleish and by extension kind of what Cincinnati did. He had to, all the 3 of these guys have imported their players essentially from their previous team. So again, what I'm trying to say here is that with Indiana's success here and how they've done it so quickly, it is going to give fan bases, particularly ones at major schools, kind of a different look on how they are treating their new coaches or coaches who have been there or who were hired at the same time as Cincinnati was, right? I think Kellen DeBoer. So, do I think it's fair that these coaches are going to have no extra pressure if Indiana does pull this off? If having the extra pressure of, hey, you need to do what they did in the first couple of years, that's not fair, but it's part of the job. It's part of the expectations, and we've seen this before too. We've seen it happen with first-year coaches that have made runs to the national title, right? TCU, I mentioned this earlier in our preview for the national title game. They did it in Sonny Dykes' first year. He also had it with Gus Malzahn at Auburn. Speaking of Auburn, he did it in his first year. So we've had it before, but again, those were different because they were first-year situations. It was kind of microwaving your way to success. Well, as Kirk Cincinnati has been doing it in a kind of a way where you're both microwaving it, but you're also building towards stuff, right? They built last year was like the foundation, like laying down the concrete. Now you're building up the walls and putting the the sheetrock up, and you're adding all the critical structures to the building, if you will, the hypothetical building. So if they do this, and even if they don't do it, regardless of what happens, I think this will change the kind of the way we think, or at least fan bases think, in terms of looking at first-year coaches, or in this case of Bama fans, looking at Kellen DeBoer being, hey, he was hired at the same time. Coach Sig has done more than you have. Why are you doing less if more resources? We don't get it. So, it's going to happen, and it's, it should happen. Do I think it's fair? No. But that's just a reality. And also, too, no, do I think this whole model of, or at least the chances of someone doing what Coach Cincinnati is doing, like it being like duplicable everywhere, I don't think that's possible. Will someone do it? Maybe, but it's going to be very rare. But thank you, Daniel, from Athens there. Again, I forgot who that was. I had to go look for who submitted that. All right. Spicy predictions being revisited here. Again, I think we did this a couple of shows ago. I don't think we documented it very well. So we're doing it properly here now. So this sounds like we're repeating stuff from a long time ago. I think we did do this a while ago, but we're just redoing it again here. But who cares? Again, it's my show. We can't make the rules here. Anyway. Spicy predictions. If you don't know what this is we do this. We'll start this around, late spring, early summer, kind of around the same time we start doing our team, preview or projections, record projections, right? We'll start those around the first, when we have our first show in May, right? So I guess that'll be like probably the second week. So we start these down. What spicy predictions are? They're sort of like bold predictions, but they're predictions, and I have them on here, and I give them a rating of, least likely to happen to more likely to happen, right? So that's the way I have it on here. So kind of, the categories we use here, instead of using boldness, we use sort of like how spicy the take is, right? Or how spicy the prediction is. So spicy means we think the prediction's unlikely to happen. Hot, slightly unlikely. Warm is maybe, mild as it could happen. Like we could see it happening. So I've chosen about 6 here. It looks like, yeah, 6 of these. We'll go for these, and then we'll end the show. First one here, Tennessee has a worse record than UCLA. Of course, this was in reaction to, or of course, referencing the fact that Nico Iamaleava goes over to UCLA. Tennessee gets their quarterback from UCLA in a bit of a quasi-trade. So again, the prediction was Tennessee will have a worse record than UCLA. I put that as a hot, I believe, which again means slightly unlikely. I didn't think that was going to happen. I was kind of correct on that, actually. Yeah, so at least the prediction itself did not happen. So that was a no on the actual prediction. So I was correct in saying that was not going to happen. So that actually, let's change these to a different category here. Let me do this real quick. So that one is, yes, we got that correct in terms of our rating. Next one here, Damon Williams Jr., quarterback, Washington, who, by the way, I don't think we mentioned this on the show at all, but of course, that whole saga of him, will he or won't he go in the portal? He was in it briefly, now he's back. Very odd situation. This prediction was, he wins the Heisman Trophy. I thought Washington this year was going to be a very underrated team. I thought they could be a surprise team. Now, of course, Damon coming back, that could still be the case here. Maybe we were just a year early, but he had a good season though. It could have gone anywhere too if he was in the portal. I'd have been a huge gift for wink wink, not Miami. He has yet to get a portal QB because they don't really have one, or at least they didn't recruit well in high school anyway. Damon Williams wins the Heisman Trophy. This one, put this one in the warm category. Didn't happen, so we kind of got that one wrong. That's no. That was in the warm category, meaning it could happen. So that one was a no, technically. This next one here, Georgia losing both of its neutral site games. That would have been regular season. So the game against Georgia Tech, for some reason, was at Mercedes-Benz Stadium and not at Bobby Dodd Stadium. I get it. There was renovations going on, but like why? Couldn't delay it for another month. So that one, and of course, the Florida-Georgia game, final year in Jacksonville until a couple years later. I think the next one's in Tampa, I believe. So this one, yeah, the prediction was Georgia loses both of them. It seemed possible based on how we were projecting Florida and Georgia Tech. Now, we got Georgia Tech right. Florida, we were way off on. They did not make a bowl game. So that one, we were a no on the warm category of saying it could happen. This next one here we got this one right, actually. Oklahoma has a better record than Texas when they meet up in Dallas. I believe that would have been in September, I believe. So, when those two met up in Dallas for the Red River Shootout, Oklahoma was going to have a better record than Texas. Correct. Absolutely correct on that one. So I'd say yes, we got that one correct. We had that in the mild category, meaning that was probably going to happen. That was absolutely correct on that one. So if you're wondering, yes, that was sort of stolen, if you will, from, I believe, one of the guys on the Next Round Live in Birmingham. I believe it was Lance Taylor who predicted that. We gave him credit for that. Now, of course, our folks did not. But, that prediction ended up being true. So that was kind of a nice little take there from Lance Taylor from the Next Round Live. And, of course, we used it, I guess, for this one as well. Next one here, or second to last, Texas A&M and UF are top 10 teams when they play each other this regular season, which happened, I believe, in October, I believe. That was in the hot category, so that means that was a, slightly unlikely. That's correct. They were not both top 10. One of them was A&M. UF was not. Of course, UF, again, this is at the time we were projecting UF to have a very good year based on a lot of factors we had back during the summer, but, hey, it is what it is. And then finally, this one, I was wrong on. This is a no. We did not get this one right. But the prediction was right. Just our scaling of it was wrong. Houston wins 6 or more games this year, being 2025. Friends, Houston, I believe, did they go 9-3 or I'll have to double check here. I believe they actually had a very good year. I know they made a bowl game. Let me look up here. Houston Cougars football. Of course, this is the second year under Willie Fritz. Yeah, they won. Wow, they won more than They won 10 games this year. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, they won 10-3. They beat LSU in the bowl game. So that one we were way off on that one in terms of the rating of it. It was a good prediction, but way off. My thinking on that one was that Houston was weird, really weird team, right? They had Connor Wegman, jokes about him about hey, a dude looks like he's like a defensive lineman playing quarterback. He gained a lot of non-athletic weight. Not to mention the transfer issues with players coming in and out. They had to portal in a whole new secondary, I believe. So there were legitimate questions about cute Houston. Be a surprise team. Look, I'm a big fan of Willie Fritz. Okay, like he. By the way, if you don't remember, years ago before Georgia Tech hired Brent Key, that was Willie Fritz's job. But he was going to get that job, and he didn't. So that is what it is. A lot of folks forget about that, but trust me, it did happen. You'll look it up on Google. But yeah, I was way off on this one in terms of rating it. The rating of the prediction, it happened. So that was a no for us. So let's see here. What was that? 2-4, I believe, or no, 3-3. Half and half on that one. On the predictions there for revisiting them. And we'll do more eventually here. We'll do some next week and whatnot. Going on as we get into sort of the January, February, March portions of the season. Then, of course, we'll start the new batch of these coming up next year, along with the record projections, which we will also revisit at some point too. We'll probably do them starting next week if I forget, or if I don't forget. So yeah, and that's it for the show. Again, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Again, our next show will not be on Tuesday; it will be on Monday night. So no show Tuesday. We'll have a show on Monday night after the conclusion of the national championship game. I don't know when. Probably like late Monday night, early Tuesday morning at midnight. Just be on the lookout for that. We'll either record it or just do it live. We'll see. Probably just do it live. Yeah, but it'll just be a traditional show. Just be on Monday night after the game. So again, no show Tuesday. Regular show should be back on this time next week. So not to mention, we'll have the Four Verticals Extra Pod. Hopefully, we'll do one tomorrow, and we'll probably do one next week at some point, either Wednesday or Friday. Probably Friday next week. So just be on the lookout for that. In the podcast feed, again, make sure you subscribe to the podcast feed, subscribe to the channel. So until Monday night, enjoy the game. Good luck to both teams. Again, I am picking Indiana to win. I think Miami will cover. Hopefully, we get a good game. I think we will get a good game. The last two, by the way, national title games have not been very competitive, at least in the final score. So hopefully, we get an instant classic here. I am thinking we probably will. I think Indiana does make history to do it. And that'll be huge for that program and a huge one for college football, too. First time ever that we've had a non-blue chip ratio team. And the blue chip ratio, since Bud Elliott started doing it, that we've had a national title team winning, or at least a national title team outside of the blue chip ratio. So that'll be again, we could win this history. Either way, history. We can win this history for Indiana or Miami too, right? Not forgetting. Miami for the longest time was a program that a lot of folks thought would never win a national title ever again, at least in our lifetimes, which sounded stupid because against the classic cannot versus have not. They just hadn't done it. It means they couldn't do it. And now here they are, 4 more quarters away from winning it. So I think this will be an instant classic, I think this will be a very exciting game. So enjoy the game on Monday night. Those are both teams. And also enjoy the NFL games this weekend. Huge playoff games in the NFL. So until Monday night, enjoy the game this weekend. Enjoy the game Monday night. We'll see you guys after the game Monday night. So until then, take care. And we'll see you guys on the next stream.